Hey everybody, it's Life After Death. Well, I mean, this show is called Life After Death. We're still, this is life before death. But in the afterlife, the place where we go after we die, there are two fascinating kinds of angels. There are celestial or heavenly angels, and there are spiritual angels. And the reason why they're distinct, and why, in fact, they live in two different parts of heaven, is because of what love is like and how people and angels receive and give love. So we've got these two different kinds of angels because there are two different kinds of ways of being affected by love. Love is what structures the whole afterlife. And it looks a little bit like this. There is broadly heaven, hell, and the world of spirits, which is a halfway point that we first go to after we die. But within heaven, there are categories, there are regions, there are levels to heaven. Swedenborg talks about the third or inmost heaven, the second or middle heaven, and the first or outermost heaven. And today we're going to be focusing on the inmost and the middle. We'll talk about the outermost some other time if you're fans of the outermost heaven. We'll get to you. Let's talk about how love works and how it affects us. Because it's love that places these angels, the heavenly angels in the third and the spiritual angels in the second. What would love look like if you could see it? Okay, class, draw me a picture of love, but not like two people who are feeling love and snuggling each other on a bench in the park. I mean, like love itself, the substance. What would it look like? You can't see love physically, but in the afterlife, you can see love. And you know what it looks like? It looks like fire. And it also behaves like fire. Fire radiates. You can see this because there's light radiating out from it. I can see it because that light is hitting my retinas. It's bouncing off everything in the room just a little bit. You can just see my hands from it. It's also bouncing off the camera sensor, so that's why you at home can see it. But also, it's hot. It's also radiating out warmth. God is like this fire, but instead of warmth and light, God, who is love, love is like the fire itself. God sends out goodness and truth. The light is like truth, and the heat is like goodness. And this aligns with, you have reports from people who have had a near-death experience, and they encounter a light like this. It's a lot brighter, but light it is, and there's love in the light. Listen to this. This is from a Washington Post article. No human can ever love with the love I felt in that light. It is all consuming, all forgiving. Nothing matches it. So there's love inside of light, which sounds a little strange because you'd be used to, well, there's love in a person, but love can be inside of light, just like warmth can be inside of fire. This fire is sending out two things. We just talked about them, light and heat, and we're receiving both of those. I'm receiving this light into my eyes, and it ends up as information in my brain, and I can receive this warmth, and it ends up becoming part of my body heat. Angels receive what God sends out, that goodness and truth into them. But with angels, the reception ends up as mutual love and truth. The divine warmth shows up in them as mutual love or love for each other, and the divine light shows up as the truth or true ideas that mutual love inspires. And it is those ideas that give them the specific ways to bring mutual love into action. So the heat shows up as, oh, I care about you. And the light shows up as, hey, I know what you like. You like pastries. I'm going to make you some pastries. And this brings angels together with each other, and it's what makes heaven vibrant. Because on earth, if you get light and heat together coming out of the sun, it makes this thing that we call the growing season. Heaven is like a growing season in the heart and mind, a perpetual growing season. All right, let's get the Lord in there. Thanks, Candle. So the Lord is sending out goodness and truth, and the love from God that makes that goodness and truth goes out is a uniting force. The reason why just love sending out what it sends out creates all these different communities and structures is that love, as Swedenborg puts it, is spiritual union. Love is a uniting agent. Well, think about it. If you love someone, what does it do? It builds a relationship between you. So the love that angels accept inspires them to build relationships with each other and build relationships with God, and in that way creates this tight union that is the only way something as complex and amazing as heaven could ever be pulled off. Swedenborg says, love unites angels to the Lord and unites them with each other. It does this so thoroughly that in the Lord's sight, they are like a single being. You think about the human body, which Swedenborg often compares heaven to the human body. There is so much uniting here. All the different organs and organelles and cells and tissues know how to give certain chemical components to one part, and another part needs energy, and another part needs protection from the immune system. They all get along and they work together and create this amazing homeostasis or health. How would you ever do that with millions and millions and billions of people like there are in heaven? How could you herd those cats to all work together so tightly and with such unanimity of purpose? It's by love. It's by love. It's that everybody cares about the welfare of everyone else, and everybody loves what is from God. That is what does it. And this is why when you get around any kind of spiritual experience where anyone goes and sees heaven and meets God, they're talking about love. They're talking about love. They're oversharing about love. This is from a recorded near-death experience. Simply put, love is the central theme for everything. It is the core principle that we are all supposed to follow. It is what will allow us to become one with God in this world and the next. And not one in an esoteric, ununderstandable sense. Is by having relationship. It's by having love. And this is not something that is foreign or strange to us, because we are made to be in that kind of united, loving environment, because love is who you are. You can swap out the term love for life, and it's the same thing. The love force is the life force. Swedenborg says it this way: further, love is the essential reality of every individual life. It is therefore the source of life of angels and of the life of people here. Anyone who weighs the matter will discover that love is our vital core. We grow warm because of its presence and cold because of its absence. So love is what it's all about. God is love. That love sends out goodness and truth, which inspire love in the angels and cause them to unite to each other through love, unite back to God, and the whole thing is held together by love as an expression of love. Love, love, love. That's what it's all about. Okay, I get it. It's all about love. One love, man. But then why is there all this different stuff? If it's just there's love, there's God and people, why all these lines and circles? It's because while the love that comes out of God and goes to any individual person is the same, God completely loves everyone in the entirety of the expression of that phrase. It is absolute love for them, sends them all the truth, all the love in the world. Nobody receives that love exactly the same as someone else. Nobody acts on that love and truth in the same way as somebody else. And it is the particular way that each angel receives, acts on, cultivates this love force inside themselves that determines what their heaven is like. It even determines where they are in relationship to God, because spiritually, distance is determined by similarity or dissimilarity in love. So God didn't come out with a hammer and some stakes and say, all right, I'm going to rope off this part for the inmost heaven. This is the Patreon subscribers. Then here's the second one. These are all determined by the nature of the love and reception. We go to where we're most comfortable and most joyful within the spread of divine love. And that's what makes each of our heavens heaven for us in particular. Swedenborg describes 3 major levels of heaven, and each of these levels exists because it's organized around a particular kind of overall love that motivates the angels that live within its lives, that is the life of the angels who are there. The second, or the middle heaven, is inhabited by angels who are primarily motivated by love of the neighbor. And the third, or central heaven, is inhabited by angels who are primarily motivated by love for the Lord. But those aren't what you think they are. And it's something that we have to unpack if we're going to understand what heavenly life is. Hey, so what do you want to talk about? I know, let's talk about love of the Lord and love of the neighbor and how they're different and how they're similar. No? You don't want to? That doesn't sound interesting? Well, I can guarantee you something. This is going to be confusing. Swedenborg says it's a confusing thing to talk about. He says, in heaven's light, it is easy to see how these two loves differ and how they unite. But this can be seen only dimly in our world. So we're going in dim, because you can't put your hands around these. You don't. What are they? What do they look like? Love of the Lord, love of the neighbor. These are 2 different ways to love. It's all about loving one another, but there are variations in how you can do that. The initial reason that discussing these 2 kinds of love is confusing is that the definitions of them are not what you think they are. You would think loving the Lord would mean, well, you think about God and you get a picture of God as like some sort of person, and maybe you think about the things God has done for you or for the human race, or what God is like and his hobbies, and then you feel affection and you're like, oh, I want to help out. Right? Isn't that love of the Lord? No. According to Swedenborg, love of the Lord means loving what is good. You love the Lord essentially when you love love. So when you come across in human beings, somebody has an impulse to do what is right, or somebody does something noble, and you think, I love that. And particularly when an impulse in you comes up to do what's right and do what's good, and you feel like, I want to do that. I want to make that a priority in my life. That is what I want to stand for, who I want to be. That's loving the Lord. Because rather than loving the image of God you may have in your mind, which may or may not be that accurate, this is loving God where we actually meet God in life. This is loving who God is. This is having a common hobby with God. This is having a shared interest with God. Because that's what God is all about, is love and goodness. And so if we are into the same thing, that unites. If we share the drive to enable people to have goodwill toward each other, to do good to each other, to go for the happiness of people, if that's what moves us, if that's what gets us out of bed in the morning, that's loving the Lord. Because that really fundamentally is who the Lord is. That is a clearer picture of who God is than any mental imagery we may have of God. That's what loving the Lord is. And loving the neighbor, which is characteristic of the second or middle heaven, loving the Lord being in the third or inmost heaven, loving the neighbor means loving the truth. Loving the truth. By loving the truth, to intend and to do it. Wanting the truth to be known and to be followed. But if you think about it, that does have to do with your neighbor. Because if I follow the principle and believe in you shall not steal, If I love that principle and I honor it and I let it direct me, that is one piece of creating a society in which everybody's safe and everybody's protected and everybody's enabled to have a good life. So to love the truth, to love the information that directs us toward a good life, that's what loving the neighbor is. It's not as much, what's my picture of this person next to me and how am I feeling about them today? Do I have love or not? No, this is, no matter what, I'm going to treat this person fairly. I'm going to treat them with respect. I'm going to treat them how they would want to be treated because these things are told to me by my spiritual code of life, by the religious or spiritual instructions that I believe to be from God. That's what loving the neighbor is. So there are these two different kinds of love, loving what is good and loving what is true, and they're different. Just like out of a single flame comes both heat and light, which those are different, but they can be united, just like warmth and light can be united. So the love for the Lord and love for the neighbor are connected to each other, yet each of them, as the driving force in your life, makes you a different kind of person. Makes you a different kind of person. So the celestial or heavenly angels are driven by a love of what is good. That being moved by what is good and the desire to do what is good is what makes them who they are, and so shapes the heaven that they create, because that is what they accept primarily from the Lord, and truth is secondary to that. The second, or the middle heaven, these spiritual angels are ones who are moved primarily by a love for the truth. They understand the principles. They know that they are good. They want to live by them. That is what leads them to the good of life. So both of these are receiving what comes out of God, but it's a different order in what is prioritized and how that makes them live. And those two different modes of life impact how these angels affect the rest of heaven that's around them. God radiates. God radiates. We've been talking for 25 million episodes about how God radiates out love and truth all over everything, just like the sun blasting light and heat everywhere. But God's not the only one that radiates. Aren't we each in the image and likeness of God? Why wouldn't we have the same features? And actually, the life that's in each of us is from God. That's what the acceptance of that radiation, or radiance, I guess radiation has a negative vibe to it, radiance from God is the acceptance of that life. So we have the same life coursing through us. So angels are kind of mini God nodes. Not that they are God, but they are open to receiving and reflecting God, which as they continue to accept more and more love and reject everything that has to do with selfishness, materialism, it makes them more and more the embodiment of God's love and God's thoughtfulness, which makes angels really start to be amazingly beautiful. Swedenborg says, angels look indescribably beautiful. Love radiates, ding ding, from their faces, from their speech, from every detail of their behavior. So just like God radiates out good and truth, every angel is surrounded by their own radiation, which you can call an aura. In heaven, auras are a thing. A lot of people talk about auras on earth. I haven't seen them myself. People say they're there. I know Swedenborg saw them in heaven. Each angel has an aura around him or her, and that aura is a radiation of their thoughts and feelings. Because God's thoughts are divine truth itself. God's feelings are divine goodness itself. Each of us, our thoughts and feelings radiate out as well. And because angels have these auras around them, everybody can tell. If you go up to an angel, even from a distance, you can tell exactly what that angel's about. You can feel, there's no mistaken first impression. You can feel what they care about and the unique kind of mind they have. And it can actually be a pretty powerful experience. Swedenborg wrote this: "The auras that emanate from angels are so full of love that they touched the deepest reaches of life of the people they meet. I have been aware of them a number of times, and they have moved me deeply." Think about the last time that you were moved deeply. I think about sometimes a movie will get me, and after like an hour and a half of build up, we've established the characters, we know what the sort of right and wrong that we're dealing with is. Somebody does something, or there's some statement about life that moved me. Maybe I'll shed a little tear. Angels could do that to you right away. Just by going up to them, you get a sense of how great goodness and truth are, and just how noble God is. And that's coming out of them, and it can actually, give you that same kind of impact. But you wouldn't get the same experience, even though it's all God's love. You would get a very different experience approaching each kind of angel, because different angels exude different auras. And the auras of the angels in the inmost heaven are different. These are love-oriented auras. The angels in the middle heaven, these are truth-oriented auras. He even says that the lighting is different. That the reason we color-coded these like we did is that in the innermost heaven, he says that the light there, the way the sun is seen, the way that God is seen, is more tinged with red, like reddish, like sunsetty, sunrise, I guess you would really say, sort of light. Whereas in the middle heaven, it's a brilliant white and blue light. So your love affects your aura, and everyone gathering together with the same love affects the whole environment, which further creates the beautiful differences in these heavens. Your love not only affects people around you and not only broadcasts your mind, but it also impacts and really dictates what kind of mind you have. Love is like Velcro. Let's mix metaphors. I love mixing metaphors. Love is a uniting thing. It brings things together. It brings individual angels together through developing relationships of love. It brings the different heavens together, the way that they can unite through love. It unites everybody to God, unites heaven to earth, uniting. But within a single angel, on the micro level, love unites to the knowledge that goes with it. Love unites to the things that can enrich its life. Love makes you want to know things. Here's an example. Let's say that I tried to teach you guitar. Okay, let's learn guitar. Okay, these are the strings. E, A, D, then G, then B, then E. These things are called frets. This is how you tune it. And if you want to make a chord, if you do not care about learning the guitar, you are not going to remember these things, and you are not going to enjoy learning them, and you're probably not going to comprehend a lot. Why would I ever want to play guitar? But if you feel in your soul, like I want to be able to rock out, I want my job to be a rock star guy, and I want to know how to do that, then you love learning about it. Okay, what did you say? Frets? Okay, I can remember these. What is it? C is this one, then this one, then this one. I can use that. I want to write a song. I can use that. What's that? E minor. I got to learn how to play E minor because that's so brooding and mysterious. It's going to be perfect for my acoustic album. When you love something, you crave the knowledge that goes along with it. That's the nature of love. It wants to pull the wisdom in that goes along with it. Swedenborg wrote, "Love is receptive of everything that is in harmony with it." So the love of God and love of the neighbor that's in each of these angels build the heaven that's around them. Love not only absorbs the knowledge that needs to go with it, but all kinds of qualities that make heaven, like peace. Angels are in a state of peace because the love that drives them absorbs that peace, creates that peace. Same thing with the intelligence that they need, that do what they need to do, with the wisdom and with the happiness that goes along with those. These loves are the focal point of the heavenly experience. And each angel, having their own unique kind of love within the category that they're in, pulls to them the heaven that goes with that. And a cool benefit of that is what I would call intellectual fairness. So you think on earth, there can be people who are just on the right SAT track. They've got these advantages. They started with, they're well-educated, and so they are going to be smart and they're going to be successful. And you have people who do not have those advantages or just weren't born as cognitively flexible. And even though they might have really good hearts, they're going to be left behind. That's not how it works in heaven. It is not how smart and successful and fancy you get in here directly transfers over to there. It is your love that drives the kind of mind that you have. Swedenborg told this story. He said, there were some spirits who doubted that love was so full and wanted to know whether this was really true. Always in the afterlife, you have a question, somebody's going to answer it for you. In order that they might find out, they were let into a state of heavenly love, with all obstacles removed, and were brought forward a considerable distance to an angelic heaven. So let's say you had spirits who had just arrived from the world, and they were in the world of spirits, and they were talking to an angel. They said, hey, I want to know, what's this heaven thing really all about? Okay, well, to show you, I'm going to put you in a state of a certain kind of love, and that is going to pull you, let's say it pulled into this heaven. They talked with me from there, so Swedenborg is back here on the world of spirits, and told me that they felt deeper happiness than words could express, sorrowing that they would have to return to their former state. And you get that in near-death experiences. People will say, the beings of light said, do you want to go back? No, I don't want to go back. I want to stay here. Okay, fine. I have people that I love. I have to be with them. I'll go. But the joy that comes with being in a state of heaven is very, very magnetic. Other people as well have been raised into heaven, and the deeper or higher they have been taken, the deeper or higher they have penetrated into intelligence and wisdom, becoming able to grasp things that were incomprehensible to them before. We can see from this that the love that emanates from the Lord is open to heaven and all its riches. All right, let's switch over to this side. So if you're somebody who has love of the Lord or love of the neighbor or both in different degrees in you, if you worked on love, if you cared about love, if love was what you were moving toward, that pulls you into heaven. That pulls you toward the Lord. And as you come toward the Lord, all of the mind stuff, the intelligence, the wisdom, the ability to be able to comprehend things, for me, the ability to speak without fumbling over my words, all of that comes to you. All of that seeks out or is sought out by a heart of love and given, open to heaven and all its riches. So you think about the nice, there's got to be someone you know who is super nice, super humble, and what me, I'm nobody special. They are someone special, because that love brings with it everything that has to do with heaven. All the experience in heaven, the nature of the heaven people get, is determined by the different kinds of acceptance of love that these angels have. That is what defines who you are. But if you want, if the option is open, you can also define yourself by not your acceptance of love, but by your rejection of divine love. That's all that hell is. Hell is, instead of love of God and love of the neighbor, you have love of your own ego, love of control, love of dominion, everything that is the opposite of those loves, where instead of thinking, how do I serve everyone, you think, how can everyone serve me? How can I use everyone and everything to get what I want? That moves you as far from the source of love of God and love of the neighbor as you can comfortably be. Actually, if you're in a state of mind that is hell, if you're in a love of material things above all, or if you're a love of yourself above all, you don't like being here. It's not that you're not allowed, but if you go here, you're nauseated by the vibe of this. Oh, these people love each other and they, blah, blah. Like the Grinch looking down at the Who's. Like, I don't like that. So everyone can go where they want to go. And if you want to seek out like-minded people outside of love of God and love of the neighbor, God is saying, yeah, I'm going to still be sending out my love to you, even if you twist it around. I'm still going to take care of you. I'm going to give you the happiest life you could have, but I'm not going to force you to come in and be closer than you're comfortable. So hell is the rejection of everything from the divine, but heaven is the embracing of that. And these two loves, love of God and love of the neighbor, embrace everything that comes from the divine. And they are sort of two ends of that spectrum. And this is why, you remember in the Bible, somebody asks Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? And he gives two answers to it. Is this a sort of political, I'm not really going to answer the question, what's the greatest commandment? He says two things. Remember that? He says, you shall love your God with all your heart and with all your soul. This is the greatest and first commandment. The second, which is like it, is that you should love your neighbor as yourself. Because he's talking about love of God and love of the neighbor. And these are the two different ways, the different ends of that heat-light spectrum that connect people with heaven. That encompasses, those two statements encompass all the different ways, all the unique billions and billions of ways that people can accept what's from God and love God, and as such move into the happiness of heaven. So those two loves is basically saying, here's the gates of heaven in any way you want to enter. And this is why these two loves come up in proximity to each other in religions across the world and across time. Behold how good and how pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity, love of the neighbor, for there the Lord has commanded the blessing, life forevermore, love of God. Hold fast all together to God's rope. Be not divided among yourselves. Let there arise out of you one community, inviting to all that is good. They can't love the Lord and love the neighbor, can't leave each other alone. May we unite in our minds, unite in our purposes, and not fight against the divine spirit within us. It's always that. How do we get together and get together with God, which, as we looked at a deeper level, is how do we love love? How do we love truth? Set your faces toward unity, gather ye together, and for the sake of God, resolve to root out whatever is the source of contention among you. Everywhere you go, it's about love of God and love of the neighbor, love of truth and love of goodness, because that's what makes heaven. And bringing us, in whatever way we're most comfortable, into heaven, that's the whole game. That's what God is all about. So this is how all of this works in the afterlife. You're welcome. Now you know there's a third level of heaven, a second level of heaven, a first level of heaven, world of spirits, the hells. This is how love of God and love of the neighbor move your spirit around in proximity to the spiritual sun. Okay. This is not something that starts someday in the afterlife. This is something that is happening to us right now, because we are all being shined on by God in this moment. That same goodness and that same truth that radiates out of the divine love is hitting our spirits. We experience the same processes. And this love of God, which is the love of what is good, which is the love of doing what is good, not for any ulterior motive, but simply because it will help. And then the love of the truth, which is loving the right way of understanding life, not because it will make you seem smarter or you get to impose your view on someone, but simply because you know this will lead to the structure that enables love. That can be building in your heart anytime. This is why we do the work of spiritual growth. This is why we bother to try to learn things like this, is because it opens us up to going through this process that moves us toward the divine. It's going to be different for everyone. Some of us are going to be leaning more toward the truth and understanding things cognitively. Some are going to be more enamored with the feelings side and being led by love for what is good. That's great. We need both kinds of people. Heaven would be incomplete without either of these levels. Human race would be incomplete without the different ways that each of us love what is good and love what is true. The more that we cultivate those in ourselves, the more they remember that love sponge, they will pull to them everything that creates heaven. The peace, the intelligence, the wisdom that we're looking for, all of that is drawn in by this love. So the more that we make that our priority, to allow that love in and to act on it, to intend it and do it, the more we can be building heaven right now while we're on earth.